Anyone who's spent time looking through the electronics section at Walmart is probably well aware they like to sell movie bundles. Get a classic film with all the sequels for only $9.99. Two similar yet unrelated films for one low price. And then there are these things. 8 movie value packs. 8, count 'em 8, feature-length films for the staggeringly low price of $3.97. That's 50 cents per movie. And let me assure you, you get exactly what you pay for. These are the lowest of low-budget cinema, a combination of mockbusters and bad film school projects. They usually come bundled by genre, 8 family films, 8 action movies, 8 romance flicks. I could go on, but you get the idea. The only reason I can think of that someone would willingly buy one of these, aside from torturing Alex DeLarge, is the price tag. People will subject themselves to some crazy shit if they feel they've gotten a bargain. I'm fairly certain that this was the driving factor behind my own purchase of an 8 Halloween horror movie bundle. That, and I probably figured it was worth a couple of laughs. Only 2 of these movies really stood out to me though, one being about Bloody Mary, probably because it's about a well-known urban legend, and the other is the 2006 film Salvage, also known as Gruesome in Australia and the UK. It was written and directed by Josh and Jeffrey Crook, and if IMDb is to be believed, boasts an astronomically low budget of $25,000. The directors have been quoted saying that the budget was actually $200,000, but considering the average Hollywood blockbuster runs between 30 and 40 mil, that's still really cheap. What stood out to me about the film was its interesting concept and a twist ending worthy of Shyamalan. Unfortunately, damn near everything else about the execution was bad. Salvage follows the story of Claire, a young college student, as she's forced to relive the day of her murder over and over again. It's kind of like a macabre Groundhog's Day or Happy Death Day, but where Happy Death Day is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke on itself, this movie is meant to be taken 100% seriously. Well, let's get into it. We start out with Claire finishing up an overnight shift at a convenience store. As the kids say, big mood. I worked my way through college at a small-town Hess station back when they still existed. She steps out to wait for her boyfriend Jimmy to pick her up, but when his truck arrives, he's not the one behind the wheel. This charming-looking poster child for r/nice guys is Duke Desmond. Claire questions Duke about where her boyfriend is, and he basically tells her, "Don't worry about it. Get in." And she does. Congratulations, Claire! You win the Darwin Award. Gee, I wonder how this is gonna pan out. Oh, right! Fucking badly! And as if this guy, who looks like he crawled his way out of a PSA video on why you shouldn't talk to strangers, rolling up in her boyfriend's truck wasn't enough of a red flag, there are plenty more during the ride home.
I gotta tell you, I think you're the prettiest girl I've ever seen. Just want to see your pretty face. You got nice skin. You're not gonna be a little stuck-up, are you? Don't tell me you're another one of those fucking.
Also, I would bet all of my worldly possessions that this is the boyfriend's corpse in the back.
I'm not trying to rape you.
No, of course not. You're just gonna dance in front of a mirror wearing your skin like Buffalo Bill.
Would you fuck with?
No, I wouldn't! So this first kill happens 10 minutes in, and I feel like that's a serious mistake. We need some time to get acquainted with our main character, to grow attached to her. That way, when it's stabby murder time, we're emotionally invested and concerned for her well-being. The only things I know about Claire in the first 10 minutes are that she works for a convenience store, she has a boyfriend, and she likes to go for rides with strangers. I'm not particularly concerned about her dying at this point, because it may as well be a suicide. Just as she's dragged down to the basement, she wakes up and we're back where we started, with her finishing up her shift at work. Events start to play out the same way. But this time when the boyfriend's truck shows up, he is actually the one driving it. So this really bugs me. Right here we've established that Claire is stuck in a time loop, reliving the events that lead up to her murder. But if that's the premise you're going with, events should play out the same way each time. The only difference should be Claire's actions. If we've already established that Duke has murdered Claire's boyfriend and stolen his truck at this point in the loop, then for the sake of consistency, that's how it's gotta be. Also, that would have spared us having to deal with this absolute dillweed. Jimmy is a giant bag of dicks. He spends most of the movie when he's not getting his skull caved in with an axe, trying to convince Claire to talk her best friend Jen into a 3-way, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Anyway, Claire has a pretty normal day. She gets dropped off at home, she gets ready for class, chats with her mom, then Jimmy picks her up and brings her to school where her teacher is apparently reading the Divine Comedy. She and Jimmy mess around under the bleachers, but Claire gets freaked out when some blood drips onto her face. She asks Jimmy to go and look up top. And, I like how when the camera pans down, he's just awkwardly crouched by her legs and her pants are still buttoned and zipped up. Dude, you've been down there for a minute and a half at this point. They're jeans, not a bank safe. Turns out nothing is there and Claire imagined it, so she has Jimmy bring her home and takes a bath. While dozing off in the tub, she dreams about her murder. And when she opens her eyes, the door to the bathroom has been cracked open slightly, and she can hear her mother whispering ominously to someone.
I don't think she suspects.
I don't know if that laughter is supposed to be the mom or if that's just ambient horror noise. It turns out the whispering is coming from the basement, so Claire goes down to investigate. This leads to one of the scenes that I think this film did particularly well. The only light in the basement is coming from the stairs, leaving the rest in darkness. Normally, when a scene is filmed in a pitch-black location where the character can't see their hand in front of their faces, we either can't see shit or we have night vision. Here it's all based on your perspective. When looking at Claire, we see her silhouetted in the light from the stairs, but when the camera follows behind her, all we see is the back of her head and the darkness that she's seeing. As Claire finds the switch for the light, we get a brief glimpse of a hazy, distorted face. Then the light flicks on, and standing in the same spot as the face, Claire's mother stands with her back to the camera.
I lost something down here. I was just looking for it.
She never turns around, never even moves. Then suddenly the phone rings and Claire runs off to answer it, leaving her mother alone in the basement, still unmoving. When Claire answers the phone, it's her boyfriend Jimmy asking her to come watch him play basketball tomorrow.
And bring Jack.
Then we cut directly to that happening. There was no jump scare or anything. The film just built up this tension, leaving you with an odd sense of unease and a million unanswered questions. And then we're right back into tone-deaf asshole boyfriend interactions like none of it ever fucking happened. I don't know whether the scene was a sudden moment of genius or just a stroke of dumb luck. When Jimmy said he was going to be playing basketball, I figured he was part of a team or something and that they had a game. But no, apparently he's invited his girlfriend and her friend to watch him 1v1 this random drongus in the local park. The next couple of minutes kinda make me think the filmmakers just lifted this fucker from a dude bro frat boy flick and transplanted him into their super serious horror film.
I mean, I would never cheat on you. Unless you wanted me to. And if you do, I will do it right now. I will do it right now. Because that's how much I love you.
Seriously, he's written more like the heel in a shitty spring break comedy than the boyfriend in a horror movie. He brings Claire home where she takes a shower, and we get a cut to Duke running through the woods being chased by the police. Later, while Claire does her homework, the same distorted face from the basement appears in the crack in the door behind her and disappears. Claire apparently senses she's being watched, so she calls out to her mom, who answers from that very same room. What the hell is Claire's mother? She's the most unsettling thing in this film. Then we cut to Claire getting a ride into work, where she plays some solitaire and passes out on the counter. When she wakes up and looks at the security monitor, she sees Duke is lurking around in the store. I love how goofy this is. Dope, she's awake, better hide. She trips the store's silent alarm and goes to investigate. Can you imagine how awkward this would be if it were just some random-ass customer? Claire comes at them with a chunk of metal, and then the police roll up, and it's just some stoned college kid looking for munchies at 3 a.m.
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
That scene would have been way more fun. But no, Claire's attacked by Duke. And in the struggle, she manages to gouge out his eyes, and come on! Doesn't even look like blood. It looks like cherry Kool-Aid. There's no excuse for this. You can get literal gallons of decent quality fake blood from any costume shop for like $10. Duke stalks off, and Claire runs outside just as the police arrive. Back at the station, they tell her there was no one in the store but her and show her some security footage of her flailing around and fighting herself. When she describes Duke, the detective shows her a picture of him and tells her he shot Duke dead a week ago. Apparently he was wanted by the police for cutting up a couple of teenagers, and rather than give himself up, he decided to shoot it out. The detective offers Claire a ride home, and she falls asleep in the back seat. When she wakes up, she's in her boyfriend's truck, and Duke is loading his tarp-wrapped corpse into the back. He jumps in and drives a screaming Claire back to her house.
This is happening. This isn't real.
Well, now how would you know what was real? Because all of this is bullshit. You, me, everything. It's all made up. The only thing that's real in this whole world is what you feel when I cut your head off.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Duke is dead, he cut up 2 teenagers, none of this is real. Claire's already dead, isn't she? She's a ghost reliving the trauma of her last moments, right? Well, I like the way you think, but let's take that idea and put it in our pocket for now. We're gonna need it later. Claire runs inside, and of course Duke drags her into the basement and murders her. This time we get an extended scene of him ripping her face off. I totally called it on the Buffalo Bill thing. She wakes up at the store, and we're back to the beginning of the loop. I don't know why I still call it that. There's almost no consistency to it. The first run lasted 10 minutes, and the second one went on for 3 days. Claire tries to go about her day normally, still generally unaware that time is repeating itself. At least until she gets to English class and the teacher is reading the same passage in Dante's Inferno.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter.
Okay, a couple of things. This passage describing the gates of hell is how the teacher ends the lesson. Are you telling me that Claire sat through an hour-long lecture, repeated word for word, and didn't realize it until the end? Also, this statement.
Miss Claire?
Gave this lecture yesterday.
Well, how would you know? You weren't even here yesterday.
Is totally factual. Even in Claire's version of the timeline. Because, first off, college courses aren't held daily, they're held every other day, so she wouldn't have even had this particular English class yesterday. Second, even if she did, she was off watching Dungulus Maximus play b-ball in the park. She jumps into Jimmy's truck and tells him what's going on.
What the fuck are you talking about?
But maybe he's a ghost.
Bitch, are you crazy?
Demonstrable proof that he's an abominable shit-gibbon. He agrees to help her find info on Duke, mostly just to shut her up, and then they pay a visit to the church that Duke had attended. The janitor tells them,
He had us all fooled with his talk of Jesus and salvation. But I guess the devil works in mysterious ways these days, hiding in plain sight.
and then assures them that Duke can't hurt anyone because
he's in hell.
Then they decide to go and check out Duke's house, because that's what you do in a horror movie. Jimmy backs out of exploring the house with Claire because...
You know, this place makes me want to take a crap.
And that's totally pointless, because as soon as Claire runs off to the basement, he breaks into the house anyway to take a shit. Duke shows up, hears the toilet flushing, and goes off to murder Jimmy with a shovel. Then wraps him in a tarp and loads him into the truck and drives off. Claire makes a run for the college library so she can look up old newspaper clippings about Duke's death, because no horror movie would be complete without a scene of looking at old newspapers. But she finds more than she bargained for, a news article saying she was one of Duke's victims and her body was never found. This scene is another one that I think the film did particularly well, not because of what Claire is up to, but because of what's going on in the background. You know the demonic face effect? The one where the person's face suddenly contorts so their mouth is enormous and their eyes are dark voids. It's usually used as a jump scare because even at the best of times it looks ridiculous. So it's there and gone again before you have a chance to register what you're looking at. But in this movie, it's done more gradually, and it kind of works. Duke steps out from behind a row of books behind Claire. Because the focus is on her, he is really blurry. His face contorts and he starts walking forward. And I'm sure the effect looks stupid as per the usual, but because it's so out of focus, we can't really see how bad it is. And rather than leading to a cheap jump scare, this moment is just used to build up tension, like the scene in the basement. It, coupled with the fact that we can now confirm Claire is dead, really plays up the fact that we are not dealing with a mortal killer. Claire runs from the library and finds herself wandering through a cornfield, one where she's seen Duke before, digging. She digs where he did, and we get further confirmation of her death because she stumbles across her own dead body. Duke drives by in the truck, causing Claire to flee in panic. She ends up at her friend Jen's house.
I'm your best friend. I'm here. I will take care of you.
You know, you're not supposed to read the stage direction, right? Claire falls asleep and has a dream showing us how Duke died. When she wakes up in the morning, she discovers Jen has led Duke right to her. She runs, getting into the truck and driving off. Once she feels like she's put enough distance between her and Duke, she jumps out and checks the tarp, confirming that it is in fact the body of Jimmy. The body moves, causing her to jump back and scream, and when she looks up, she finds herself parked in front of her house, and she can hear her mother calling, unconvincingly, for help.
Claire, I need your help.
The voice leads her into the basement, a place that she would really rather avoid, but... Claire, help me, please! Claire, I'm in pain! This leads to the big reveal. Claire's mother tells us that Claire isn't Claire. She is in fact the soul of Duke Desmond, trapped in hell, reliving his murder of Claire from her perspective.
Claire's dead. Because you killed her. Because you killed her.
Duke.
As the demon disguised as Duke goes to cut off her face again, she turns into Duke. Then Claire wakes up at the end of her shift, signifying the loop restarting, and credits roll. So, credit where it's due. This movie did some things I like. I didn't see that twist ending coming, and the scene with the mother in the basement and the one at the library in particular I felt were pretty well done. The problem is, the rest of the movie isn't. So the scenes that work really well feel like they belong in a different, better movie and don't hold the weight they should. Like, they work in the moment, but then I remember I'm watching Salvage. The first kill comes before we get to develop a connection with Claire, so we're not terribly invested in her survival. But then they go and try and build that connection, and we still don't care, because now we know there's no real consequence for her death. The movie drops a lot of clues about the twist ending, which I didn't really figure out until after the fact, but they're really on the nose, and someone more clever than myself could probably work it out with no problem. Like the teacher reading Dante's Inferno, the janitor ominously stating,
"Because he's in hell."
And there's a scene where Claire gets out of the shower and walks towards a fogged mirror. The reflection in the mirror before she cleans it off is Duke. It was a clever idea, but the more I think about it, the more questions I have. Duke's punishment in hell is reliving the murder he committed, so why doesn't he just relive the murder? Why do we get 3 full days of Claire's life? I fail to see how English class, basketball, and awkward sexy time are relevant to the punishment. And why turn him into Claire at all? So he feels the fear she did? The man is in hell. That should be even more terrifying. I mean, really, given the choice between having your face ripped off by a guy who looks like a reject from the movie Deliverance and the Skin Taker, I personally think option B is way scarier. On the Tommageddon scale of awful, I give this movie a 4. It has a couple of good things in there that are worth checking out, but unfortunately to get to them, you've got to put up with the rest of this mess. Anyway, I've been Tom, and thanks for watching Tommageddon.